Something doesn't add up. Picture this. A grainy, black and white video flickers on the screen, showing an astronaut on the moon. Only, for just a fraction of a second, something moves in the shadows behind him. NASA says it's a trick of the light, a glitch in the footage. But what if it's not? What if that fleeting shadow is proof of something bigger? This is the world of space conspiracy theories, where the official story doesn't always match the evidence, and the truth might be hiding in plain sight. For decades, humanity has gazed at the stars with wonder, but also with suspicion. From whispered rumors about hidden moon bases to classified government documents hinting at extraterrestrial technology, the cosmos is full of mysteries that defy easy explanation. Why do so many astronauts report strange sightings? Why are certain areas of space suddenly declared off-limits? And what really happened during those so-called lost transmissions from early space missions? The deeper you dig, the clearer it becomes. Space isn't just a frontier of exploration, it's a battleground of secrets. Today, we're diving into the 25 most jaw-dropping space conspiracy theories that'll make you question everything you thought you knew. Some are chilling, some are downright bizarre, but all of them share one thing in common. They challenge the narratives we've been told. Whether it's the infamous vanishing of the Apollo 11 telemetry tapes or the eerie structures spotted on Mars, these theories pull at the threads of reality, daring us to wonder what's really out there. So buckle up, because by the end of this journey, you might never look at the night sky the same way again. Let's start with the granddaddy of all space conspiracies, the claim that the moon landing never happened. It's been over 50 years since Neil Armstrong took that iconic one small step, yet millions remain convinced it was all an elaborate Hollywood-style production. The theory gained traction thanks to a former rocket engineer named Bill Casing, who claimed NASA lacked the technology to pull off a moon landing and faked it to win the space race. But what about the so-called proof? Take the infamous waving flag. Footage skeptics argue the flag shouldn't ripple in a vacuum. Yet scientists explain it was simply vibrating from being planted, with no air resistance to stop the motion. Then there are the shadows. Critics point to photos where shadows fall in different directions, suggesting studio lights. But the moon's uneven terrain and reflective surface easily account for this. Even Stanley Kubrick's name gets dragged into it, with some insisting he directed the footage despite his widow and colleagues repeatedly denying it. The irony: Kubrick's meticulousness would have made the footage too perfect, while NASA's raw, unfiltered tapes show the messy reality of space exploration. So why does this theory persist? Maybe it's human nature to distrust grand achievements, or maybe it's just easier to believe in a lie than to fathom the sheer audacity of landing on another world. Whatever the reason, the moon landing hoax theory remains a stubborn cultural ghost, haunting every discussion about space despite mountains of evidence, from moon rocks to reflector arrays still sitting on the lunar surface today. Now imagine this: what if every blurry Mars rock or unexplained blip in deep space isn't just a glitch, but a deliberate cover-up? For years, whistleblowers and independent researchers have accused NASA of scrubbing evidence of alien life from its archives. One of the most infamous cases comes from Russia's space program, where leaked documents from the 1960s allegedly describe cosmonauts encountering a strange, humanoid figure floating outside their capsule. Officials dismissed it as space debris, but the description's elongated limbs, a featureless face, echo eerily similar to modern UFO reports. Then there's the so-called Mars mummy, a bizarre formation photographed by the Curiosity rover that some claim resembles a fossilized alien skeleton. Scientists say it's just wind-sculpted rock, but why does NASA routinely release low-resolution versions of these images first, only to quietly replace them with clearer shots later? The debate gets even murkier with structures like the Mars face, a mesa first photographed by Viking 1 in 1976 that appeared shockingly symmetrical, almost artificial. Initial NASA press releases openly speculated about its origins, only to later dismiss it as a trick of shadows. Yet independent analysts have pointed out odd details like geometric patterns nearby that resemble crumbling pyramids or even city grids. And let's not forget Dr. Richard Hoover, a former NASA astrobiologist who claimed in 2011 to have found fossilized microbes in meteorites only to have his research discredited within days. Was it bad science, or was someone uncomfortable with the implications? The counter-argument, of course, is that space is weird, light plays tricks, rocks form strange shapes, and pareidolia makes us see faces where none exist. But here's what keeps conspiracy theorists hooked: the sheer volume of anomalies. From the Apollo era's lost radiation data to the International Space Station's unexplained live feed cuts, there's a pattern of disruptions right when something unusual appears. Whether it's bureaucracy or something more sinister, one thing's clear: NASA transparency hasn't always matched its reputation. After all, if definitive proof of alien life emerged overnight, would governments even know how to break the news, or would the truth stay buried in a classified vault? The cosmos might be silent for now, but the whispers of hidden evidence grow louder every year. Of all the mysteries scattered across the dusty plains of Mars, none has captured the imagination quite like the so-called face on Mars. It all began in the summer of 1976, when NASA Viking 1 orbiter snapped a grainy black and white image of the Cydonia region, a shot that seemed to show a massive, mile-long humanoid face staring blankly up at the heavens. The initial reaction was electric. Newspapers ran dramatic headlines, scientists passed the geometry, and conspiracy theorists pounced, declaring it proof of an ancient Martian civilization. NASA's own press release at the time even called it a rock formation resembling a human head, sparking a debate that would simmer for decades. But here's where the plot thickens. By the late 1990s, new spacecraft like Mars Global Surveyor delivered high-resolution images of the same spot, revealing what appeared to be nothing more than a weather-worn mesa. Its face-like features flattened into an unremarkable hill under sharper scrutiny. Case closed, not for everyone. Skeptics pointed to oddities in the new data. Why did the shadows still align suspiciously with the original eyes and mouth? Why were certain angles released first while others took years to surface? Some researchers even claimed to spot symmetry in the surrounding terrain, unnaturally straight lines and clustered mounds that, to them, hinted at ruins of a larger complex. The scientific community rolled their eyes, attributing the illusion to pareidolia, the same psychological quirk that makes us see dragons in clouds or the Virgin Mary on toast. Mars, they argued, is littered with weird geology, wind-carved ridges, collapsed lava tubes, and dust devils that sculpt the landscape into fleeting illusions. Yet the conspiracy camp fired back with a compelling counter. If it's just a trick of light, why has NASA repeatedly prioritized imaging this exact spot over others? And why, in 2001, did the agency release a processed version of the face that, despite supposedly debunking it, still retained eerie, smooth contours? The most fascinating twist: some former NASA employees have quietly admitted that the original Viking team did briefly consider the possibility of artificiality before dismissing it. That tiny seed of doubt has fueled decades of speculation. Modern rover missions avoid Cydonia entirely, citing low scientific value, a decision that only fans the flames. Whether it's a cosmic Rorschach test or the crumbling relic of a lost civilization, the face on Mars endures as a cultural icon, reminding us that in the vast silence of space, the line between fact and fantasy is sometimes written in shifting sand. Long before humans launched the first artificial satellite into orbit, conspiracy theorists believed something else was already up there watching us. Meet the Black Knight, an enigmatic object supposedly circling Earth for thousands of years, its origins shrouded in myth and its existence fiercely debated. The legend traces back to the late 19th century when Nikola Tesla claimed to have intercepted strange, rhythmic radio signals he believed came from outer space. Decades later, amateur radio operators in the 1920s reported similar unexplained transmissions, repetitive pulses that seemed too structured to be natural. But the story truly exploded in 1960 when newspapers reported that the U.S. Navy had detected a mysterious dark object in polar orbit, a feat no known human technology could achieve at the time. The evidence, grainy photographs from early space missions, like the 1998 Endeavour shuttle footage, appear to show a jagged, tumbling shape silhouetted against Earth. Skeptics dismiss it as space debris or a discarded thermal blanket, but believers point to its unusual trajectory and the way it seems to vanish from tracking systems. Even more intriguing are the claims that ancient cultures from the Sumerians to the Mayans referenced a dark star in their astronomical records, watching over humanity like a silent sentinel. Yet every piece of supposed proof crumbles under scrutiny. Those alien radio signals, scientists later identified them as pulsars, distant neutron stars emitting regular bursts of energy. The famous photos, NASA confirms they show discarded equipment or ice particles reflecting sunlight, and the idea that an alien satellite could survive millennia in orbit without decay. Orbital mechanics make it virtually impossible. Even modern satellites eventually succumb to atmospheric drag. But here's what keeps the Black Knight theory alive: the inconsistency in official responses. Documents declassified in the 21st century reveal that multiple governments did track unknown objects in orbit during the Cold War, objects later attributed to secret spy satellites or experimental tech. Yet some files remain heavily redacted, leaving just enough ambiguity to fuel speculation. Why would a simple piece of space junk warrant such secrecy? Unless, of course, it wasn't junk at all. Whether it's an ancient alien artifact or a case of mistaken identity, the Black Knight endures as a celestial ghost story, a reminder that sometimes the most compelling mysteries aren't found in the stars, but in the shadows we cast trying to explain them. What if humanity's reach into space extends far beyond what's publicly acknowledged? Enter Solar Warden, the alleged top-secret space fleet operated by the United States military since the 1980s, a program so classified that even most government officials supposedly have no idea it exists. The theory gained traction from a surprising source. In 2002, Scottish hacker Gary McKinnon breached Pentagon and NASA systems, searching for evidence of UFO cover-ups. Instead, he claimed to have stumbled upon something even more explosive, a spreadsheet titled Non-Terrestrial Officers, listing names and ranks of personnel assigned to off-world locations. He also described seeing detailed logs of ship-to-ship transfers between massive, spaceborne vessels with names like the USS Hillenkoetter, allegedly part of a clandestine armada. Supporters of the theory point to other curious leaks, like a 2010 email from a NASA contractor referencing Solar Warden directly, calling it a 20-year-old program with craft capable of interstellar travel. Even more eyebrow-raising are declassified documents from the Reagan era, where the president famously mused in his diary about the need for a space-based defense system, writing, "What if all of us in the world discovered we were threatened by a power from outer space?" Skeptics argue these are just coincidences, but why do so many whistleblowers, from aerospace engineers to former intelligence officers, describe eerily similar details? The counterarguments are just as compelling. Military experts note that maintaining an entire fleet in orbit would require unimaginable resources, fuel, supplies, and infrastructure, all somehow hidden from astronomers and rival nations. Then there's the physics problem. Even today's most advanced propulsion systems can't achieve the speeds described in Solar Warden accounts. And let's not forget, space isn't exactly a quiet place. Satellites and telescopes scan the skies constantly. How could hundreds of massive ships evade detection? Yet the theory persists, fueled by gaps in official narratives. Why did the U.S. suddenly abandon the ambitious Strategic Defense Initiative, or Star Wars, in the late 1980s despite pouring billions into it? Was it really shelved, or did it morph into something darker? And why do astronauts like Edgar Mitchell, the sixth man on the moon, openly speculate about shadowy space programs operating beyond congressional oversight? Whether Solar Warden is a case of misinterpreted data or the best-kept secret in human history, one thing's certain: the idea that we might already be a spacefaring civilization, just not publicly, forces us to reconsider who really controls the final frontier. We've been staring at the moon for centuries, mapping its craters and studying its phases, but what if everything we think we know about it is wrong? What if the moon isn't just a rocky satellite, but a hollow, artificial structure hiding secrets we can't even begin to fathom? This is the heart of the hollow moon hypothesis, one of the most audacious space conspiracy theories out there. The idea first gained traction in the 1970s when seismic sensors placed by Apollo astronauts picked up something bizarre. After the lunar modules deliberately crashed into the moon's surface, scientists expected the vibrations to fade quickly, like a bell struck once. Instead, the moon rang. For over an hour, NASA's own data showed vibrations lasting far longer than any natural celestial body should, leading some researchers to privately speculate: what if the moon's interior isn't solid at all? Then there are the transient lunar phenomena, mysterious flashes of light, glowing mists, and color shifts reported by astronomers for centuries. These aren't fringe observations. Even NASA's own archives document hundreds of cases. In 1969, Apollo 11 astronauts famously radioed Houston about strange brightness variations in the crater Aristarchus, with Aldrin describing it as illuminated from within. Mainstream science chalks it up to gas releases or meteor impacts, but why do these flashes often recur in the same spots like clockwork? Conspiracy theorists point to even stranger anomalies like the so-called shard and tower, photographed by lunar orbiters, jagged, mile-high structures jutting from the surface with geometric precision. Skeptics dismiss them as camera glitches, but why do these apparent structures cast shadows consistent with solid objects? The most chilling piece of the puzzle comes from Soviet astrophysicists Mikhail Vasin and Alexander Cherbakov, who published a radical paper in 1970 titled "Is the Moon the Creation of Alien Intelligence?" They argued the moon's improbable orbit, its oddly shallow craters, and its precise size perfect for eclipses suggest engineering, not chance. Even the moon's composition defies logic. It's far less dense than Earth, with some estimates suggesting its core might be partially hollow or filled with lightweight metals. And let's not forget the Apollo 13 incident, where an empty rocket stage was sent crashing into the moon as an impromptu seismic experiment. The resulting shockwaves were so intense, they overloaded sensors, leading one NASA technician to joke, "It's like hitting a gong." Of course, the scientific establishment has answers for all this. The prolonged vibrations, they're likely due to the moon's dry, fractured crust acting like a reverberating chamber. The TLP, solar wind interacting with lunar dust. But here's what keeps the hollow moon theory alive: the sheer volume of anomalies. From ancient texts like the Mahabharata, which describes a celestial chariot orbiting Earth, to modern whistleblowers who claim classified data reveals metallic caverns beneath the surface, the moon refuses to fit neatly into our models. Whether it's a natural oddity or something far more mysterious, one thing's certain: the next time you look up at that pale orb in the sky, you might just wonder what's really looking back. For centuries, the pyramids of Egypt have stood as monuments to humanity's past, but what if they're not just relics of our history? What if they're part of a cosmic blueprint shared with another world entirely? This is the spine-tingling premise behind the Mars-Earth connection. a theory that suggests the ruins of an ancient Martian civilization mirror our own. At the center of this idea is Richard Hoagland, a former NASA consultant turned independent researcher who sparked a firestorm in the 1980s with his claims about Cydonia, the same region home to the infamous face on Mars. But Hoagland didn't stop at a single face. He pointed to a cluster of nearby formations, including what he called the D and M pyramid, a five-sided structure with precise angles that, according to his measurements, aligned mathematically with Earth's Great Pyramid of Giza. The similarities don't end there. Hoagland's team crunched the numbers and found something even more startling. The angles and ratios of these Martian formations matched sacred geometry found in ancient sites across Earth, from Stonehenge to Teotihuacan. They argued this wasn't coincidence but evidence of a shared architectural language, possibly broadcast across the stars by a lost interstellar culture. Even more provocative were his claims about NASA's own data. He accused the agency of deliberately smudging high-resolution images of Cydonia to hide unnatural details, pointing to patches where pixels seemed unnaturally blurred or colors misaligned glitches he insisted weren't technical errors but censorship. Critics, of course, have dismantled these claims piece by piece. Geologists note that pyramidal shapes occur naturally through erosion, especially in regions like Cydonia, where wind and dust storms sculpt the landscape over eons. The sacred geometry connections, statisticians call it cherry-picking, highlighting random patterns while ignoring the vast majority of data that doesn't fit. And NASA rebuttals are firm. Image artifacts happen, especially in early space photography where contrast and resolution were limited, but here's where the plot thickens. Independent analysts using modern software have reprocessed raw Viking orbiter data, and some insist certain features do display unnatural symmetry, right angles too sharp, alignments too precise for chance. Then there's the broader mystery. Why do so many cultures on Earth, separated by oceans and millennia, build pyramidal structures? Conventional archaeology points to practicality. Pyramids are stable, efficient shapes for monumental construction. But conspiracy theorists counter with a haunting question. What if that knowledge came from the same source? Ancient texts like the Sumerian epic of Gilgamesh speak of gods from the heavens who brought wisdom to humanity. Could those gods have been survivors of a dying Mars, seeding their knowledge here before their world turned to dust? The most compelling twist in this saga came in 2015, when NASA's Curiosity rover discovered silica-rich formations on Mars eerily similar to hydrothermal vents on Earth environments where life thrives without sunlight. Suddenly, the idea of a once habitable Mars didn't seem so far-fetched. And if life did exist there, who's to say intelligence couldn't have arisen? The scientific community remains skeptical, but the parallels keep stacking up. Martian meteorites with microscopic structures resembling fossilized bacteria, atmospheric methane spikes hinting at subsurface activity, and even strange, repeating light patterns detected by telescopes that some interpret as remnants of ancient infrastructure. Whether you see Cydonia as a cosmic Rosetta Stone or a case of imaginative pattern recognition, one thing's undeniable. The Mars-Earth connection forces us to confront a radical possibility. What if we're not the first inhabitants of this solar system to gaze at the stars and wonder, are we alone? And what if the answer has been buried in plain sight, carved into the stones of two worlds? The pyramids may keep their secrets for now, but as our rovers dig deeper into the red planet's past, we might just uncover a truth far stranger than fiction. The official record states that no human has ever died in space, but conspiracy theorists insist the truth is far darker. Behind the polished heroics of the space race lies a chilling possibility. Astronauts from both sides of the Iron Curtain vanished after encountering things they weren't supposed to see. Some call them the lost cosmonauts, a grim footnote in history where radio transmissions crackled with screams before going silent, and government files were hastily sealed. The most infamous case comes from 1961, when Italian brothers Achille and Giovanni Giudica Cordiglia claimed to have intercepted distressed Soviet space transmissions. One recording, allegedly from a doomed female cosmonaut, captures her voice growing increasingly panicked as a spacecraft burns up on re-entry. "I see fire, I see fire." Soviet archives deny any such mission, but why were there unexplained gaps in their launch logs during this period? The mystery deepens with America's own astronaut tragedies. Take the Apollo program's so-called phantom broadcasts, where ham radio operators swore they picked up cryptic conversations between Apollo 11 and Houston conversations omitted from NASA official transcripts. One exchange, supposedly heard by multiple independent listeners, had Armstrong urgently reporting, "They're here, they're parked on the rim of the crater," before static swallowed the rest. Skeptics dismiss it as radio interference or hoaxes, but why did NASA later classify portions of the Apollo 11 air-to-ground recordings as lost due to technical errors? Even more unsettling are the deaths tied to the program. Astronauts like Thomas Barron, a quality inspector who publicly criticized NASA safety protocols, died in a sudden train collision just days after testifying before Congress. Coincidence or something more sinister? Then there's the case of Soviet cosmonaut Vladimir Komarov, whose doomed Soyuz 1 flight in 1967 has long been framed as a mechanical failure. But declassified CIA files hint at stranger details. According to one memo, Komarov's final words, intercepted by U.S. intelligence, weren't about malfunctioning parachutes but instead described unknown objects swarming his capsule. The most haunting twist, his backup, Yuri Gagarin, the first man in space, reportedly demanded access to Komarov's sealed autopsy photos shortly before dying himself in a suspicious plane crash. The counterarguments are compelling. Historians note that early spaceflight was perilous, with both nations rushing untested technology, the Giudica Cordiglia brothers' recordings. Experts point out their cosmonaut voices lack the telltale distortion of actual space transmissions, and those eerie Apollo radio snippets, they could easily be misidentified crosstalk from other missions. But here's what keeps the theory alive: the pattern of secrecy. Why did Soviet state media abruptly cancel live broadcasts of risky spacewalks after cosmonauts reported luminous entities outside their craft? Why did NASA quietly scrub entire Gemini mission tapes citing audio degradation while preserving others perfectly? Whether it's bureaucratic paranoia or evidence of a deeper truth, one thing's clear: the final frontier might hold dangers no training manual ever prepared these pioneers to face. There's a name that sends chills through conspiracy circles: Nibiru, the so-called death planet lurking somewhere beyond Neptune, supposedly hurtling toward Earth on a doomsday collision course. The story begins not with modern astronomers but with ancient clay tablets. In the 1970s, author Zaccharia Sitchin claimed to have decoded Sumerian texts describing a mysterious 12th planet called Nibiru, home to an advanced race known as the Anunnaki. According to Sitchin, these beings visited Earth millennia ago, genetically engineering humanity as a slave species. But here's where the conspiracy kicks in. He insisted Nibiru wasn't just myth, it was real, with a 3,600-year elliptical orbit that would eventually bring it back into our solar system with catastrophic results. Fast forward to the internet age, and Nibiru transformed from fringe archaeology into a full-blown apocalyptic obsession. Doomsayers predicted its arrival would trigger pole shifts, volcanic eruptions, and biblical-scale flooding, first in 2003, then 2012, then 2017. Each failed prediction only fueled the theory, with believers accusing NASA of covering up Nibiru's approach by tampering with telescope data or deliberately mislabeling it as a dwarf planet like Sedna. Some even pointed to strange gravitational anomalies in the outer solar system as proof of Nibiru's invisible influence. scientists, of course, have dismantled these claims repeatedly. The Sumerian text Sitchin cited, mainstream linguists argue his translations were wildly inaccurate, with no mention of a rogue planet, those gravitational oddities. They're now attributed to the hypothetical planet 9, a potential ice giant theorized to explain distant orbital patterns, not a world on a killer trajectory. As for the missing telescope images, astronomers note that an object large enough to wreak havoc would have been visible to amateur stargazers years in advance. Yet the Nibiru theory persists, fed by a mix of mistrust and misinterpretation. When NASA-era satellites spotted unexplained infrared signals in the 1980s, conspiracy theorists declared it the smoking gun, never mind that the readings were later identified as distant galaxies. When comets or asteroids make close passes, YouTube lights up with claims they're Nibiru's heralds. Even natural disasters get folded into the narrative, with every earthquake or solar flare framed as a sign of the planet's approach. What makes Nibiru uniquely compelling isn't just the doomsday angle. It's the way the theory stitches together ancient myth, modern science, and existential dread. It taps into a primal fear that unseen forces control our fate, and the institutions meant to protect us are either powerless or complicit. Whether it's a case of cultural pareidolia or the ultimate false flag of the cosmos, Nibiru endures as a dark mirror reflecting humanity's oldest question: are we truly alone, or is something out there waiting in the void? Early on an April morning in 1561, the citizens of Nuremberg, Germany, witnessed something that would haunt their records for centuries. According to broadsheets printed at the time, the sky above the city erupted in chaos: crimson crosses, glowing spheres, and tubular objects clashing violently in what could only be described as an aerial war. Witnesses reported strange objects falling to the ground in clouds of smoke, while others hovered ominously before vanishing into the dawn. The event was so unsettling, local artists hurriedly sketched the scene, leaving behind woodcuts that look eerily like modern interpretations of a UFO dogfight. Scientists have tried to explain the phenomenon for generations. The most common theory points to a rare atmospheric display known as a sundog, where ice crystals refract sunlight into bright halos and phantom shapes. But even this explanation struggles to account for the sheer variety of objects described: not just lights, but structured crafts with distinct forms. Then there's the duration. Sundogs typically last minutes, yet the Nuremberg event allegedly unfolded over hours, complete with a dramatic finale where a colossal black spear-shaped object appeared to crash beyond the horizon. The real intrigue lies in the details buried in those 16th century accounts. Multiple witnesses reported the objects moved with purpose, as if under intelligent control, some even describing them fighting like angry swarms of bees. Could this have been mass hysteria? Possibly, but consider this: Nuremberg was a hub of Renaissance science, its citizens familiar with celestial events like comets and meteor showers. These weren't superstitious peasants, they were artisans, scholars, and officials who documented what they saw with chilling precision. Modern UFO researchers see Nuremberg as a historical smoking gun, proof that unexplained aerial phenomena aren't just a product of the nuclear age. Others argue it was a misidentified astronomical event, perhaps a meteor breaking apart in spectacular fashion. But here's what keeps the debate alive: similar sightings pepper history. Just 5 years later, residents of Basel, Switzerland, reported an almost identical sky battle: black spheres colliding under a blood-red sun. Coincidence or something more? Between the lines of these ancient reports lingers a tantalizing question. If something truly unexplainable did occur over Nuremberg, what does that say about the countless other celestial wonders dismissed as folklore? The past might hold more mysteries than we're willing to admit, hidden in plain sight beneath the dust of history. The official Apollo program ended with number 17 in 1972, or so we've been told. But what if there were secret missions hidden from public view that uncovered something so shocking it had to be buried forever? Enter Apollo 20, the alleged mission that never officially existed, yet supposedly brought back footage of an ancient alien city resting silently on the far side of the moon. The story erupted in 2007 when a retired aerospace worker named William Rutledge, claiming to be a former NASA employee, uploaded grainy videos to a now-defunct website. The clips appeared to show a derelict spacecraft nestled in the lunar highlands, its elongated shape resembling a cigar or fuselage. Rutledge insisted this was no meteorite impact or trick of shadows. It was a miles-long vessel, half buried in dust, surrounded by towering structures that defied natural geology. The most explosive claim: inside the craft, astronauts reportedly found a humanoid body preserved in eerie stillness. Rutledge called her EB, short for extraterrestrial biological entity. The footage, shaky and bathed in the sterile glow of helmet lamps, shows what looks like a slender, elongated figure with a distinctly non-human face, large, lidless eyes, no visible nostrils, and a texture to the skin that some described as waxy or synthetic. The video's narrator, purportedly Rutledge himself, claims the team collected artifacts, including strange symbols etched into the walls of the ship, before sealing the discovery under classified orders. Scientists and skeptics quickly dismantled the story. The alien city structures, lunar orbiters, have since mapped the area in high resolution, revealing nothing but ordinary craters and ridges. The EB footage, forensic analysts noted inconsistencies in the lighting and shadows, suggesting studio fakery. Even Rutledge's background raised red flags. No record of him exists in NASA employment archives, and his technical descriptions of the mission contained errors only an outsider would make. Yet the theory persists, fueled by unanswered questions. Why does NASA's own Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter avoid releasing high-resolution images of the exact coordinates Rutledge described? Why did Apollo astronaut Edgar Mitchell, despite dismissing most UFO claims, once cryptically state, "We are not alone, they've been coming here for a long time"? And perhaps most intriguingly, why does the alleged Apollo 20 footage include radio chatter that matches the cadence and jargon of authentic mission transcripts, down to the precise timestamps used by NASA in the 70s? The hoax angle gains traction when you examine the origins. Rutledge's videos surfaced alongside a surge of interest in lunar anomalies, just as YouTube was becoming a hub for conspiracy content. The timing feels convenient, and the visuals, while eerie, lack the granular detail you'd expect from actual moon footage. But here's the twist: some of the debunked elements aren't so easily dismissed. Independent analysts using spectral imaging software have pointed out odd mineral deposits around the site, with reflectance patterns that don't match surrounding basalt. Could it be wreckage from an ancient impact or something else entirely? The Apollo 20 saga forces us to confront a deeper question. In an era where digital manipulation can make anything seem real, how do we separate truth from fiction? Maybe the mission was a hoax, but maybe, just maybe, it was a fabricated cover for something real. After all, if humanity ever did stumble upon extraterrestrial ruins, wouldn't the first instinct be to deny, obscure, and control the narrative? The moon's silent surface holds countless secrets, and until we return, stories like Apollo 20 will continue to dangle between myth and potential revelation. We always see the same face of the moon, but what's hiding on the side permanently turned away from Earth? For decades, conspiracy theories have swirled about the moon's far side, suggesting everything from abandoned alien cities to secret Nazi bases built with technology salvaged from World War II. The intrigue began in the late 1940s when German rocket scientist Werner von Braun, former architect of Hitler's V-2 rockets and later a key figure in NASA, was allegedly part of a classified program called Project Horizon. Declassified documents reveal early plans to establish a military lunar outpost, but some researchers claim the project went much further than paperwork suggests. They point to von Braun's own cryptic comments, like his 1956 statement about certain structures on the moon being not natural, or his odd refusal to discuss the far side in press conferences, once quipping, "We are not at liberty to disclose." Then there's the mystery of the crater Tsiolkovsky. When Soviet probes first photographed this massive basin in the 1960s, astronomers were stunned by its near-perfect symmetry and an unusual central peak that some analysts described as geometrically precise. But the real shock came in 2009, when Japan's Kaguya orbiter captured thermal images showing abnormal heat signatures along the crater's rim patterns that didn't match known geological activity. Independent researchers studying the data noted strange, angular shadows that seemed to outline what looked like artificial platforms or towers. NASA dismissed the findings as artifacts of image processing, but why did the agency later classify portions of the original Kaguya dataset under national security restrictions? The Nazi connection takes an even darker turn with claims about Operation Highjump, Admiral Byard's 1947 Antarctic expedition. Conspiracy theorists allege the mission wasn't just about polar exploration. It was a hunt for hidden German technology, possibly even a portal to the moon itself. They cite Byard's bizarre post-expedition interview where he warned of enemy aircraft with incredible speed that could fly pole to pole. Could he have encountered remnants of the rumored Nazi Bell device, an anti-gravity weapon some believe was tested in underground bunkers before being evacuated to somewhere else? Mainstream historians roll their eyes at these claims, but anomalies keep piling up. Why did multiple Apollo astronauts, including Al Worden from Apollo 15, admit they were briefed about artifacts on the moon before their missions? Why does China's Chang program, the first to land a rover on the far side, routinely encrypt its lunar data transmissions? And most chillingly, why did astronomer Dr. Morris Jessup, who extensively studied lunar anomalies, allegedly commit suicide in 1959 after sending a letter to colleagues about structures not meant for human eyes? The official explanation for all this: pareidolia, bureaucratic secrecy, and the simple fact that the moon's far side is a chaotic jumble of impact scars. But when you stitch together the whispers, the classified footnotes, and the odd consistency in witness accounts, it's hard to shake the feeling that something or someone might have gotten there before us. After all, if you wanted to hide a secret, we're better than a place that never turns to face the Earth. The dark side of the moon keeps its secrets for now. Out in the frozen depths of our solar system, orbiting Saturn's strange, walnut-shaped moon Iapetus, something impossible was caught on camera. In 2005, NASA Cassini probe snapped a series of images that set conspiracy forums ablaze: a stark, geometric shape jutting from the moon's shadowed surface. Not a trick of light, not a blurry pixelation, but a stark, angular structure resembling a perfect cube. At roughly 12 miles wide, it dwarfed even the monolith from 2001, a space odyssey, casting a long, crisp shadow across Iapetus's icy plains. Scientists quickly labeled it a camera artifact, but the image was too clean, too precise. So what was it? Theories spiraled fast. Some pointed to Iapetus's other anomalies, like its bizarre equatorial ridge, a 20-mile-high mountain chain encircling the moon like the seam of a cosmic baseball. Could the cube be part of some ancient megastructure, a remnant of a civilization that once thrived here? Others noted eerie parallels to Arthur C. Clarke's fictional monolith, a silent sentinel left behind to guide or observe. Even more chilling were claims that the cube's location matched coordinates allegedly leaked in a classified Soviet-era document describing artificial objects near Saturn. NASA explanation: pareidolia plus compression. The original raw images were low resolution, and the cube vanished in later high-def passes, revealed as nothing more than a mundane crater rim caught at a dramatic angle. But skeptics pushed back. Why did Cassini's subsequent flybys avoid the cube's coordinates? Why did raw data from the probe's infrared spectrometer show unusual thermal spikes in that region, readings consistent with artificial materials, not rock or ice? Then there's Iapetus itself, a moon that shouldn't exist as it does. Its two-toned surface, one hemisphere dark as charcoal, the other bright as snow, defies all natural explanations. Some planetary scientists suggest dust from Saturn's outer moons might have painted one side, but the divide is unnervingly exact, like a line drawn by a knife. Even stranger, the moon's orbit is tilted at an odd angle, almost as if it were placed there deliberately. The cube's most compelling defense might come from an unexpected source: geology. On Earth, wind and water carve rocks into uncannily geometric shapes. Think of Utah's rocky mesas or the Giant's Causeway's hexagonal columns. Could similar forces sculpt a cube on Iapetus? Possibly, but the scale is all wrong. Natural erosion rarely produces right angles this massive, and nothing in our solar system comes close to this level of precision. Unless, of course, it's not natural at all. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere in the static between science and speculation. Maybe the cube was just a trick of perspective, but maybe, just maybe, it was a fleeting glimpse of something we weren't meant to see. After all, the universe rarely serves up answers without also deepening the mystery. Whatever that object was, it reminds us that Saturn's silent moons might hold secrets far stranger than we've dared imagine. One of the most baffling space conspiracy theories doesn't involve aliens or secret bases. It centers on something far stranger: a wristwatch. Specifically, a photo from the Apollo missions that appears to show an astronaut wearing what looks suspiciously like a modern digital watch, decades before such technology became mainstream. The image in question comes from the Apollo 15 mission in 1971, where astronaut James Irwin can be seen with a bulky, rectangular device strapped to his wrist during a moonwalk. To the untrained eye, it bears an uncanny resemblance to a 1980s-era Casio or Timex digital watch, complete with what some claim are tiny buttons and a display. Supporters of the time traveler theory point out the glaring inconsistency. Digital wristwatches weren't commercially available until the mid-70s, let alone rugged enough to survive the vacuum of space. So how could Irwin have been wearing one in '71? Some speculate that NASA, a secret space program, had access to futuristic tech, or worse, that Irwin himself wasn't from that time period at all. The theories spiral from there. Was he a visitor from the future, sent back to ensure the mission succeeded? Or was the watch a piece of reverse-engineered alien technology quietly slipped into the program? NASA's explanation is far less dramatic. The device in question was actually a manually operated timer called the Huygens, used to precisely track camera exposure intervals during lunar photography. Close-up photos of the Huygens show it had a simple analog face with rotating dials, nothing digital about it. The illusion of a modern watch comes from the low resolution of the original image and the angle at which the timer was strapped to Irwin's suit, making the dials appear like a digital display. But here's where the debate gets interesting. Independent researchers have dug deeper, noting that the Huygens design does share odd similarities with early digital watch prototypes. In the late 1960s, companies like Hamilton and Electrodata were experimenting with LED displays, tech that wouldn't hit consumer markets for years. Could NASA have had access to classified versions of these prototypes? The agency has never confirmed or denied testing advanced wearable tech during Apollo, leaving just enough ambiguity to fuel speculation. Then there's the bigger question: why does this particular anomaly resonate so strongly? Maybe it's the simplicity of the idea, a single photo that seems to defy the timeline we know. Or perhaps it taps into a deeper suspicion that history isn't as linear as we've been taught. After all, if one tiny detail can be out of place, what else might be wrong with the official story? Whether it's a case of mistaken identity or a fleeting glimpse of something beyond our understanding, the NASA time traveler theory serves as a reminder. Sometimes the smallest anomalies cast the longest shadows. Deep in the constellation Cygnus, a star unlike any other flickers with behavior so bizarre, even the most skeptical astronomers are left scratching their heads. KIC 8462852, better known as Tabby's star after the scientist who first flagged its anomalies, doesn't just dim and brighten like ordinary stars. It plunges into erratic, unpredictable drops in brightness, sometimes by as much as 22%. That's not just unusual, it's outright impossible by every conventional model of stellar physics. When the Kepler Space Telescope first recorded these fluctuations in 2015, the data sent shockwaves through the scientific community. At first, astronomers scrambled for natural explanations. Maybe a swarm of comets or a massive debris field was obscuring the star's light, but the numbers didn't add up. No known natural phenomenon could cause such drastic, irregular dimming, and that's when the whispers began. What if we were looking at something built? Enter the most tantalizing theory of all, an alien megastructure, possibly a Dyson sphere harvesting the star's energy. The concept isn't new. Physicist Freeman Dyson theorized in the 1960s that an advanced civilization might construct a vast array of solar collectors around their star to harness its power. Tabby's star seemed to fit the profile perfectly. The dips in brightness weren't smooth or symmetrical, as you'd expect from a natural orbiting body. They were jagged, almost deliberate, like something with artificial geometry was passing in front of the star. Even more compelling, historical data dug up later showed the star had been mysteriously fading for over a century, dropping nearly 3% in brightness between 1890 and 1989. What natural process could explain that? But before we rewrite the textbooks, let's hear the counter-arguments. Mainstream science has alternative hypotheses, each intriguing in its own right. Some researchers point to a massive cloud of interstellar dust, though that doesn't account for the star's long-term dimming. Others suggest a shattered planet or a colossal collision between planetary bodies, creating a debris field dense enough to block the star's light. Then there's the avalanche theory, a speculative idea that the star's own magnetic field could be trapping and releasing dust in chaotic bursts. But even these explanations struggle to fit all the data. The truth is, Tabby's star defies easy categorization, and that's exactly why it's become a lightning rod for speculation. The plot thickens when you consider the human element. Astronomer Tabitha Boyajian, the star's namesake, initially dismissed the Dyson sphere idea as a last resort. But after years of dead ends, even she admits the mystery remains wide open. Meanwhile, the SETI Institute trained its radio telescopes on the star, listening for any artificial signals silenced so far, but the search continues. Then there's the internet-fueled frenzy. When Boyajian's team crowdfunded further research, public interest exploded, proving how deeply this cosmic riddle resonates. Perhaps the most fascinating aspect of Tabby's star isn't just the science, but what it represents, a reminder that the universe is still full of uncharted wonders. Whether it's aliens, a freak cosmic accident, or something entirely new, one thing's certain: out there in the dark, something strange is happening, and we're only beginning to ask the right questions. While America's Apollo program basked in the global spotlight, the Soviet space effort operated in the shadows. And according to conspiracy theorists, those shadows hide dark secrets the Kremlin never wanted exposed. Behind the Iron Curtain, rumors swirl of catastrophic failures scrubbed from history, classified encounters with otherworldly phenomena, and even whispers of a clandestine lunar base abandoned in haste. One of the most persistent legends revolves around the so-called lost cosmonauts, doomed Soviet spacefarers whose existence was erased after their missions ended in tragedy. The story begins with the Judica Cordiglia brothers, two Italian amateur radio operators who claimed to intercept harrowing transmissions in the early 1960s. One recording allegedly captured a female cosmonaut's voice gasping for air as a spacecraft burned up on re-entry, while another described a craft spinning helplessly into deep space. Soviet archives officially list no such missions, but why do declassified CIA memos reference unexplained radio intercepts matching these descriptions? Then there's the enigma of the Cosmospheres, a mysterious spherical craft reportedly developed in secret Soviet labs. According to leaked documents from East German intelligence, these vehicles weren't conventional rockets but disc-shaped, capable of executing maneuvers no human pilot could survive. Whistleblowers like former Soviet engineer Vladimir Rubtsov claimed prototypes were tested in remote Kazakhstan, sometimes with grim results. One account describes a Cosmosphere veering off course during a 1968 test flight, its cockpit found empty except for charred handprints melted into the control panel. The official explanation, a fuel line explosion. But why were the remains whisked away under armed guard, and why did the lead designer vanish from records shortly after? The lunar base theory takes the intrigue even further. In 1989, a Soviet astrophysicist named Dr. Sergei Smirnov allegedly gave a closed-door lecture in Moscow, revealing that Luna 9, the USSR's first successful moon lander in 1966, had photographed unnatural geometric structures near its landing site. The images were promptly classified, but Smirnov's notes, later smuggled to the West, described rectilinear formations inconsistent with natural erosion. Fast forward to 2012, when Chinese lunar orbiter Chang 2 captured high-resolution images of a peculiar cluster of angular shadows in the same region, a spot quietly labeled Area 187 in NASA internal maps. Skeptics dismiss it as crater chains, but the precision of the angles keeps researchers questioning. Counter-arguments abound. Historians note that the Soviet space program, while secretive, was also notoriously underfunded, making elaborate cover-ups harder to execute than in Hollywood plots. Many lost cosmonaut recordings have been debunked as misidentified terrestrial signals or Cold War propaganda. As for the Cosmospheres, no physical evidence survives beyond anecdotal reports, and the Luna 9 structures could easily be artifacts of early imaging technology. But here's what lingers: the pattern of silence. Why did cosmonauts like Alexei Leonov, the first man to walk in space, drop cryptic hints about things seen but not discussed in interviews? Why did Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev abruptly cancel planned moon missions after Apollo 11 succeeded, despite having a rival rocket nearly ready? The most haunting question isn't about what the Soviets hid, it's about what they might have found. If even a fraction of these claims hold weight, the truth could rewrite not just the history of space exploration, but our understanding of humanity's place in the cosmos. The Iron Curtain may have fallen, but some vaults, it seems, remain sealed. Antarctica, the most remote, inhospitable continent on Earth, has long been a magnet for conspiracy theories. But buried beneath miles of ice and shrouded in secrecy, some believe it hides more than just frozen wilderness. What if Antarctica isn't just a barren wasteland, but a hotspot for extraterrestrial activity, or even the last refuge of a secret Nazi UFO program? The theories trace back to the chaotic aftermath of World War II, when rumors swirled that high-ranking Nazi officials had fled to the South Pole with advanced technology, including disc-shaped aircraft known as Foo Fighters. These weren't just wild speculations. Declassified documents reveal that Germany did send multiple expeditions to Antarctica in the 1930s, mapping vast areas under the codename Neuschwabenland. And when Admiral Richard Byrd led the massive U.S. military Operation High Jump in 1947, ostensibly a research mission, things took a bizarre turn. According to alleged diary entries leaked decades later, Bayard's team encountered flying discs with incredible speed that emerged from the ice, attacking his fleet and forcing an early retreat. Officially, the mission was cut short due to bad weather, but why did Bayard later testify before Congress about the need for defensive actions against polar regions? The intrigue doesn't stop there. Modern satellite imagery has added fuel to the fire. In 2016, researchers poring over Google Earth coordinates spotted what appeared to be massive, near-perfect pyramids jutting from the Antarctic ice, structures with symmetrical sides and precise angles that seem too geometric to be natural. Geologists argue these are just Nunataks wind-carved mountain peaks, but the precision is unsettling. Even more compelling are thermal scans showing anomalous heat signatures in the region, patterns that don't match known volcanic activity. Could these be vents from underground facilities? The speculation intensifies when you consider reports from scientists stationed at research bases like McMurdo, who have described strange, low-frequency hums emanating from beneath the ice, sounds with no discernible source. Then there's the Vatican connection. In 2020, a Chilean researcher uncovered archived letters between Pope Pius Roman XII and German scientists discussing an ancient discovery in Antarctica that required extreme discretion. Around the same time, Russian state media curiously announced the discovery of bacterial life unlike anything on Earth in subglacial Lake Vostok, only to suddenly go silent. The samples were reportedly flown to Moscow under armed guard, and the lead microbiologist vanished from public records. Coincidence or something more? Skeptics have logical answers for every anomaly. The pyramids, a classic case of pareidolia, where the human brain imposes familiar shapes on random formations. Bayard's diary, likely a Cold War-era forgery designed to stoke fears of Soviet-aligned Nazi remnants, but the sheer volume of oddities keeps the theory alive. Why do so many nations, including Russia, China, and the U.S., maintain heavily fortified bases in Antarctica while publicly downplaying their activities? Why did the Antarctic Treaty suddenly ban all military operations in 1959, just as the Cold War was heating up? And most chillingly, why do declassified CIA files from the 1960s reference unauthorized aerial phenomena near the South Pole with capabilities exceeding known technology? Whether it's buried Nazi tech, alien outposts, or just the world's most elaborate case of misinterpreted geology, Antarctica remains a black box of mysteries. The continent's harsh isolation makes it the perfect hiding place for secrets, for legends, and perhaps for truths we aren't ready to uncover. One thing's certain, beneath the ice, something is waiting. The only question is, what? Space isn't silent, not even close. If you could listen past the vacuum, you'd hear a symphony of eerie, otherworldly noises that defy explanation. Some sound like ghostly whale songs, others like pulsing static from a broken radio. But the most unsettling recordings come from Saturn, where NASA Cassini probe captured something straight out of a science fiction nightmare. In 2022, Cassini's radio instruments picked up ethereal, warbling emissions as it orbited the gas giant. Waves of charged particles interacting with Saturn's magnetic field, scientists said. Yet to conspiracy theorists, these weren't just random space sounds. They were deliberate, maybe even a message. The theory took flight when researchers isolated one particular recording from Saturn's polar region, a haunting loop of clicks and whistles that some claimed pulsed in a repeating pattern. Mathematicians analyzing the sequence swore they detected Fibonacci-like ratios, a mathematical signature often linked to artificial structures. Even more bizarre, these emissions seemed to respond to Cassini's movements, intensifying when the probe adjusted its trajectory. Was Saturn somehow aware it was being observed? Mainstream science has answers, of course. Saturn's radio waves, known as Saturn kilometric radiation, are caused by electrons spiraling along magnetic field lines, a phenomenon observed around other planets. But here's what keeps the conspiracy alive. No other world in our solar system produces sounds quite like this. Jupiter's recordings, harsh, erratic bursts. Neptune's a deep, monotone hum. Saturn's emissions, by contrast, have an almost musical quality, with harmonic overtones that physicists still can't fully explain. Then there's the infamous WOW signal of 1977, a 37-second burst of radio waves picked up by Ohio State's Big Ear telescope, so anomalous that astronomer Jerry Amon scribbled, "Wow," in red ink on the data printout. The signal came from the constellation Sagittarius, matched no known celestial phenomenon, and was never detected again. Scientists still debate its origin, but some researchers point to eerie parallels with Saturn's radio pulses. Both exhibit narrowband frequencies, the kind used in human-made communications, and both vanish without a trace, as if someone or something flicked a cosmic switch. But the rabbit hole goes deeper. In 2020, astronomers monitoring deep space radio telescopes reported ultra-low frequency vibrations dubbed space hurricanes, ripples in Earth's magnetosphere that produced sub-audible rumbles. Some theorists connected these to declassified military reports of acoustic gravity waves capable of bending spacetime itself. Could these sounds be evidence of hidden portals or interdimensional gateways? The idea sounds ludicrous until you consider that NASA's own scientists have published papers on magnetic wormholes, theoretically linking distant points in space. The most chilling twist: some of these sounds predate human technology. Inuit oral traditions describe the sky singing during the aurora borealis, while 19th-century telegraph operators reported unexplained etheric music bleeding through their wires. Whether it's natural plasma vibrations or something far stranger, one thing's clear: the cosmos isn't just speaking its whispering secrets we're only beginning to decode. And sometimes the most profound mysteries aren't seen but heard. One of the darkest chapters in space conspiracy lore began not with a government leak or a blurry photo, but with two amateur radio operators in a tiny basement station in northern Italy. In the early 1960s, as the Soviet Union and America raced toward the stars, brothers Achille and Giovanni Giudica Cordiglia tuned their homemade equipment to frequencies rumored to carry Soviet space transmissions, and what they recorded still sends chills down spines today. The most infamous tape, allegedly captured in 1961, features a woman's voice gasping in Russian as her spacecraft disintegrates during re-entry. 5, 4, 3, "It's getting hot, isn't it?" she murmurs before her speech dissolves into static. Soviet archives officially list no female cosmonauts flying before Valentina Tereshkova's historic 1963 mission. So who was she? The brothers' collection of alleged intercepts reads like a horror script. Another tape, dated 1962, captures a man's labored breathing as his capsule spins hopelessly off course. His final words, "I will not make it back, tell my family," echo into silence. Then there's the most disturbing claim of all, a recording purportedly from 1963 where multiple voices scream before a deafening explosion. If real, these tapes suggest a shadow space program littered with corpses, erased from history to preserve Soviet prestige. Mainstream historians dismiss the recordings as Cold War folklore. They note the Giudica Cordiglias never provided unedited originals, and technical analysis reveals inconsistencies. The cosmonaut voices lack the Doppler shift expected from a moving spacecraft. Even more damning, declassified CIA files show American intelligence with far superior equipment never detected these alleged doomed missions, but here's where it gets murky. In 1991, a former KGB archivist named Mikhail Shalayev admitted Soviet space records were selectively edited, and cosmonaut trainees did vanish under mysterious circumstances. One, Ludmila Tokavi, reportedly died during an unauthorized high-altitude balloon test in 1959. Could she be the voice on the tape? A silence on the matter fuels speculation. While the US had every incentive to expose Soviet failures during the space race, no official reports reference the Judica Cordiglia tapes. Some researchers argue this proves their fabrications. Why wouldn't America exploit them? Others suspect darker collusion. Both superpowers may have secretly agreed to bury evidence of space tragedies to avoid public panic. The truth may lie in a deceptively simple detail. Recent forensic audio studies suggest the screams in the 1963 tape match the frequency profile of their min, an electronic instrument popular in Soviet sci-fi soundtracks. Were the brothers victims of an elaborate disinformation campaign, or did they stumble onto something so explosive even the CIA looked away? What lingers isn't just the question of authenticity, but why these stories haunt us. Perhaps it's the universal horror of dying alone in the void, abandoned by history. Or maybe it's the unsettling realization that for every Neil Armstrong or Yuri Gagarin bathed in spotlights, there might have been others, nameless, unremembered, who never made it home. The tapes may be fakes, but the fear they tap into is all too real. In the black silence of space, some secrets stay buried not because they're impossible, but because they're unbearable. What if the moon isn't what it appears to be, not a solid, rocky world, but something far stranger? In 2014, an amateur astronomer reviewing old NASA footage noticed something that defied explanation. As the camera panned across the lunar surface, a section of the landscape seemed to ripple, as if the moon itself were made of liquid or some kind of projection. The clip went viral, dubbed the lunar wave, and conspiracy theorists seized on it as potential evidence that the moon might not be a natural satellite at all. Could this distortion be proof of a holographic facade, or even some kind of advanced cloaking technology hiding the moon's true nature? The anomaly occurs in Apollo-era footage, where a section of the lunar surface appears to warp in a wave-like motion, almost as if someone had dragged a finger across wet paint. Skeptics argue it's simply an artifact of analog film distortion, perhaps caused by heat warping the camera's internal components or static electricity affecting the tape. But believers counter with a compelling detail. The wave doesn't distort the entire frame uniformly. It moves in a localized directional pattern, bending craters and ridges in its path while leaving surrounding terrain untouched. If it were a camera glitch, why wouldn't the entire image be affected? Then there's the holographic moon theory, which takes the lunar wave as a clue to something far grander. Proponents suggest the moon could be an artificial structure, or even a projected image, masking something hidden beneath or behind it. Ancient astronaut theorists point to oddities like the moon's precise, circular orbit, unlike any other natural satellite in our solar system, and its uncanny ability to perfectly eclipse the sun despite being 400 times smaller. Could the lunar wave be a momentary glitch in this cosmic camouflage, revealing the truth beneath? But science offers alternative explanations. One possibility is atmospheric interference, not Earth's atmosphere, but the moon's tenuous exosphere. When micrometeorites strike the lunar surface, they can kick up clouds of dust that hover temporarily, creating refractive distortions. Another theory involves thermal mirages. The moon's surface temperature swings between extreme heat and cold, and these rapid shifts can bend light unpredictably, especially when captured on older, less stable film. Yet the lunar wave refuses to fade into obscurity. Modern lunar orbiters have spotted similar anomalies, fleeting distortions in high-resolution images that some researchers claim align with electromagnetic anomalies detected near the moon's surface. Could these be signs of hidden technology or just more tricks of light and shadow? The debate rages on, but one thing's certain: the moon still holds mysteries we've only begun to unravel. Every time we think we understand it, something like a ripple across its face reminds us how much we have yet to learn. Venus, the brilliant morning star that's captivated humanity for millennia, might not be the hellish wasteland we've been told. Behind its thick, sulfuric clouds, conspiracy theorists argue, lies something astonishing, a hidden civilization thriving in ways beyond our comprehension. At the heart of this idea is George Adamski, a Polish-American writer who became infamous in the 1950s for his claims of contact with Venusians. Unlike NASA, later findings of crushing pressures and surface temperatures hot enough to melt lead, Adamski described Venus as a paradise, a world of lush forests, crystal cities, and humanoid beings who visited Earth in sleek, silver spacecraft they called scout ships. Adamski wasn't alone. Throughout the mid-20th century, a wave of so-called contactees emerged, each sharing eerily similar stories of encounters with Venusians, tall, blonde, telepathic beings who warned of humanity's destructive path. These accounts, dismissed as sci-fi fantasies by mainstream science, took on a life of their own when declassified FBI files revealed something curious. In 1952, the agency quietly investigated Adamski's claims after he provided photographs of alleged UFOs that even experts struggled to debunk. The images, showing disc-shaped crafts with intricate undercarriages, bore no signs of tampering or double exposures. Skeptics called them elaborate models, but why did multiple independent witnesses, including pilots and military personnel, corroborate sightings of identical objects? Then there's the science, or rather, the gaps in it. Early radar studies of Venus in the 1960s hinted at anomalies. Soviet probes like Venera 4 reported strange radio reflections from beneath the cloud cover, signals that didn't match expected atmospheric interference. Even more puzzling were temperature readings from NASA's Pioneer Venus mission, which detected cold spots in the upper atmosphere regions far cooler than models predicted. Conspiracy theorists latched onto these discrepancies, suggesting they could be signatures of massive, climate-controlled structures floating above the inferno below. The most compelling counterargument comes from modern probes like Japan's Akatsuki, which has mapped Venus in unprecedented detail. Its data paints a picture of a toxic volcanic nightmare with no signs of artificial structures. But believers point to an unsettling pattern. Why have so many Venus missions failed under mysterious circumstances? Of the 47 probes sent since the 1960s, over half malfunctioned or lost contact at critical moments, an anomaly rate far higher than Mars expeditions. Some theorists argue it's not incompetence, but sabotage, either by the Venusians themselves or by governments hiding the truth. Perhaps the most haunting question isn't whether Adamski lied, it's why his descriptions of Venus align so closely with ancient myths. The Sumerians revered Inanna, a goddess who descended from the great above to the great below, while the Maya tracked Venus's cycles with eerie precision, linking them to cycles of creation and destruction. Could these cultures have known something we've forgotten? Or is the Venusian civilization theory simply a mirror reflecting our deepest hopes and fears about what might lie waiting in the cosmic dark? One thing's certain, until we pierce those clouds ourselves, the mystery will keep burning as bright as the planet itself. Imagine watching a SpaceX rocket launch livestream. The countdown reaches 0, engines roar to life, and the craft soars into the sky. Then, just as the camera captures the curvature of the Earth, something impossible drifts into frame. A strange, elongated shape pulses like a living thing before vanishing into the void. This isn't a scene from a sci-fi movie, it's real footage, and it's happened more times than SpaceX would like to admit. Over the past decade, eagle-eyed viewers have spotted bizarre anomalies in the company's live feeds, objects that defy conventional explanation. Some call them space worms, undulating strands that twist through zero gravity like cosmic serpents. Others point to the infamous Tic-Tac UFOs, mirroring the same unidentified craft reported by U.S. Navy pilots. So what are we really seeing? The first major incident occurred during a 2018 Falcon 9 launch, when a translucent, worm-like object slithered past the camera. Skeptics dismissed it as ice crystals shaken loose from the rocket's exterior, a common occurrence as residual water freezes in space. But the movement was too deliberate, too organic. Unlike random debris, this thing seemed to flex as if responding to unseen forces. Then came the 2020 Crew Dragon mission, where a tic-tac-shaped object streaked across the screen, executing a sharp 90-degree turn impossible for any known human-made vehicle. NASA official statement called it likely reflective material, but former Pentagon UFO investigator Luis Elizondo noted the similarities to military encounters, stating, "The kinematics match what we've documented for years." Dig deeper and the anomalies multiply. In 2021, during a Starlink satellite deployment, the camera caught a cluster of glowing orbs maintaining perfect formation alongside the payload. SpaceX's livestream abruptly cut to a wide shot, only restoring the close-up feed once the objects were out of frame. Conspiracy forums erupted, accusing the company of active censorship. SpaceX engineers later attributed the orbs to lens flares from the sun, but independent analysts found flaws in that explanation. The orbs cast distinct shadows on the satellite's surface, something flares can't do. Then there's the most chilling possibility. What if these objects aren't just observing but interacting? During a 2022 cargo mission to the International Space Station, a dark, rectangular shape appeared to dip into the rocket's exhaust plume before accelerating away at impossible speeds. Astrophysicists suggested it might be a piece of shredded insulation, but the acceleration defied physics. No lightweight material could withstand that heat or achieve such velocity without propulsion. Former astronaut Scott Kelly weighed in, tweeting, "I've spent a year in space. Some things just don't fit the textbook. The counter-arguments are compelling but incomplete." Yes, ice crystals and debris explain many sightings, but not all. Rocket plumes create complex optical effects, yet they can't account for structured craft performing maneuvers beyond known technology. The U.S. government's 2021 UFO report admitted some phenomena exhibit advanced aerodynamic capabilities, and now those same capabilities seem to be showing up in SpaceX footage. Coincidence or evidence that whatever's dogging military jets is also keeping tabs on civilian spaceflight? Perhaps the truth lies somewhere between paranoia and physics. The vacuum of space is a hall of mirrors where light bends, reflections deceive, and the human mind scrambles to make sense of the unfamiliar. But when multiple cameras across multiple missions capture objects behaving in ways that stump engineers and pilots alike, it's worth asking what's really sharing the skies with us. SpaceX may be focused on Mars, but the mysteries tagging along for the ride suggest the final frontier holds far more than we've bargained for. The story of the missing Apollo tapes reads like a Hollywood thriller. Only this time, the stakes aren't box office numbers, but humanity's most historic achievement. In 2006, NASA dropped a bombshell. The original high-quality recordings of the Apollo 11 moonwalk, the very tapes containing Neil Armstrong's first steps, had vanished. Not misplaced, not misfiled, gone. The agency launched a frantic search, scouring archives across the country, even appealing to the public for leads. Decades earlier, these reels had been stored alongside hundreds of thousands of others at the U.S. National Archives, but somewhere between the moon landing and the digital age, the masters had slipped through the cracks. Officially, NASA claims the tapes were accidentally erased and reused in the 1980s due to a shortage of magnetic tape, but conspiracy theorists aren't buying it. If this footage was so monumental, why wasn't it guarded like the crown jewels? The official explanation hinges on a perfect storm of bureaucratic oversight and outdated technology. The Apollo 11 video we all know, the grainy, ghostly images of Armstrong descending the ladder, wasn't actually what the cameras captured. The original signal, broadcast from the moon in a specialized slow scan format, had to be converted for television, degrading the quality significantly. NASA insists the lost tapes contained only this raw feed, identical in content to what the world saw, just slightly sharper. But here's where things get murky. Independent researchers like former NASA intern Stan Lebar, who designed the lunar camera, have questioned this narrative. In interviews, Lebar admitted the original recordings likely contained unreleased angles and audio channels, possibly even footage the agency deemed too sensitive for public consumption. Conspiracy theories exploded when a 2009 Australian documentary team claimed to have found clues pointing to an even darker possibility. Digging through old tracking station logs, they uncovered references to multiple data streams recorded during the moonwalk, including biomedical telemetry from the astronaut suits and private communication channels. These feeds, if they existed, could reveal unscripted moments, perhaps even conversations not meant for public ears. Even more suspicious, the tracking station responsible for recording these streams, Parkes Observatory in Australia, had its own unexplained anomalies. Technicians reported strange interference patterns during the Apollo 11 broadcast, including a 2-minute blackout coinciding with Armstrong's first steps. Skeptics call it radio static, but why did the station director later describe the disruption as unnatural, like something was deliberately masking the signal? Then there's the curious case of the ghost tapes. In 2015, a retired NASA engineer came forward with an astonishing claim. Before the original recordings disappeared, technicians had secretly made backup copies. According to his account, these duplicates were stored at a secure facility in Maryland until they, too, vanished during a routine inventory adjustment. The timing raised eyebrows. This alleged second disappearance occurred just as private researchers were closing in on the truth, petitioning NASA under the Freedom of Information Act. Was it another bureaucratic blunder or a deliberate effort to keep certain footage buried? The most chilling twist comes from an unexpected source, Apollo 11 astronaut Buzz Aldrin himself. During a 2015 Reddit AMA, a user asked point-blank if the missing tapes contained censored material. Aldrin's response, "There are things we saw that you weren't meant to see." He later clarified he was joking, but the damage was done. Combined with his other cryptic remarks, like a 1996 interview where he referenced monitoring unknown objects during the mission, the comment sent theorists into overdrive. If the tapes really were erased accidentally, why would Aldrin hint at hidden content? Mainstream historians and scientists have logical rebuttals. The Apollo program generated mountains of data, and in an era before digital archives, losing track of a few reels wasn't implausible. The missing biomedical data, likely recorded on separate tapes unrelated to the moonwalk footage. As for the Parkes interference, solar flares were particularly active that day, and lunar transmissions have always been fragile. But the deeper you dig, the harder it becomes to dismiss all the inconsistencies. Why did NASA wait nearly 4 decades to admit the tapes were missing? Why has every attempt to recover them, including a high-profile dig through an abandoned McDonald's grease trap where some believe the tapes were mistakenly dumped, ended in dead ends? At its core, the mystery of the lost Apollo tapes isn't just about missing footage, it's about trust. In an age where deepfakes and AI can rewrite reality before our eyes, the moon landing stands as one of the last unimpeachable icons of human achievement. But if even this milestone has shadows lurking in its transmission logs, what does that say about the stories we're told? The tapes may be gone, but the questions they've left behind echo louder than ever. Before we knew its name, before we even understood what it was, something from beyond our solar system streaked into view, a silent, speeding visitor from depths of space we can scarcely imagine. In October 2017, astronomers in Hawaii spotted an object unlike anything seen before, rocketing past the sun at nearly 200,000 miles per hour. They called it Oumuamua, Hawaiian for scout, and at first glance it seemed like just another rogue asteroid. But the closer scientists looked, the more this cosmic interloper refused to fit the mold. Its trajectory was all wrong, originating from somewhere beyond the stars. Its shape defied natural logic, a bizarre, cigar-like form at least 10 times longer than it was wide, tumbling end over end like a poorly thrown football. And then came the real shocker. Oumuamua accelerated as it fled the sun, speeding up in ways gravity alone couldn't explain. For most astronomers, the answer lay in mundane physics. Maybe Oumuamua was venting gas like a comet, though no tail or outgassing was ever detected. Perhaps solar radiation pressure was nudging it along a phenomenon known to affect ultra-thin objects. But Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb saw something else entirely. In his controversial 2021 book Extraterrestrial, Loeb made a staggering claim: Oumuamua wasn't a rock. It wasn't even a comet. It was, he argued, the first confirmed piece of alien technology ever observed, a discarded light sail or probe sent deliberately into our solar system. His evidence, that unnatural acceleration, matched exactly how a thin, reflective solar sail would behave, catching the solar wind like a ship's canvas. And that elongated shape, perfect for minimizing interstellar debris collisions over millennia of travel. The scientific backlash was immediate. Critics pointed out that Oumuamua's reddish hue matched known icy bodies in our own Kuiper belt. Its slight tumble suggested a fractured, uneven surface, hardly the hallmark of precision engineering. Most damningly, the Breakthrough Listen project scanned the object for radio signals as it passed Earth and heard nothing but cosmic static. Yet Loeb fired back with compelling counterpoints. If Oumuamua was just a hydrogen iceberg, one popular natural explanation, why didn't it evaporate violently near the sun? And why have we never seen another object like it, despite years of sky surveys? The debate reached a fever pitch when follow-up observations revealed Oumuamua had no visible coma or dust cloud behavior, utterly unlike any known comet. Then came the clincher. In 2023, the U.S. Space Command declassified old missile detection data showing tiny interstellar meteors had struck Earth as far back as 2014, proving objects like Oumuamua weren't one-offs. Suddenly, the possibility of a crowded interstellar highway seemed less like sci-fi and more like a testable hypothesis. NASA's own Interstellar Object Study Group now admits we need dedicated telescopes to spot the next visitor in time to launch an intercept mission. Because here's the unsettling truth: if Oumuamua was artificial, it's already gone, a silent messenger that came, saw, and left before we could even say hello. The implications ripple far beyond astronomy. Imagine a civilization advanced enough to fling reconnaissance probes across light years, yet disinterested in direct contact. Are we being watched, ignored, or worse, are we simply not worth stopping for? Whether Oumuamua was alien tech or just a cosmic oddball, one thing's certain: the universe just got a lot stranger, and we're only beginning to grasp what else might be sailing through the dark. From hollow moons to lost cosmonauts, whispered government cover-ups to ancient alien artifacts floating in the void, our journey through space's greatest mysteries reveals something far more fascinating than any single theory. It shows how deeply we crave answers beyond the official story. Think about it. Why do these conspiracies endure even in the face of scientific rebuttals? Because they tap into a fundamental truth about humanity. We're storytellers, pattern seekers, forever reading between the lines of the universe. Take the Apollo missions. Skeptics don't just doubt the moon landings, they're questioning who gets to write history, who controls the narrative. Or consider Tabby's star, where a flickering light millions of miles away sparks debates about civilizations advanced enough to harness entire suns. These aren't just wild guesses, they're reflections of our own dreams and fears. What if we're not alone? What if the truths we cling to are just the tip of the cosmic iceberg? Then there's the darker side theories like the lost cosmonauts or Antarctica's hidden bases. These aren't just about aliens or Nazis, they're about power. Who decides what stays classified? What tragedies get erased for the sake of progress? When you peel back the layers, space conspiracies aren't really about space at all. They're about us, our distrust of institutions, our hunger for hidden knowledge, and yes, our love of a good mystery. So where does that leave you, the viewer? Not with easy answers, but with something better, questions worth chasing. Maybe your team Hollow Moon, convinced our satellite is an artificial relic. Maybe you think Oumuamua was just a weird rock, or maybe you're side-eyeing NASA, missing tapes. Whatever your take, the real fun begins when you dig deeper. Check the archives, cross-reference sightings, even grab a telescope and scan the skies yourself, because the best part of a mystery isn't solving it, it's the thrill of the hunt. So hit pause, rewind your favorite theory, and let us know in the comments which space conspiracy keeps you up at night. And remember, whether it's shadows on Mars or whispers from Saturn's rings, the universe is stranger than we imagine. But that's what makes it worth exploring. After all, the truth is out there, and maybe, just maybe, so are you.